Yeah, ever had that nagging feeling like you're not quite in the driver's seat of your own thoughts? Or maybe the world around you just feels a bit off. Well, this deep dive gets into some, frankly, mind-bending claims about exactly that sort of thing.
Yeah, we're looking closely at an audio testimony today.
Yeah.
It's from someone who used to work in private security.
A former specialist, right?
Right. And their account alleges this really widespread program. Organized harassment, they call it gang stalking, and using technology called voice to skull on people, supposedly right across America.
Waist to skull, it sounds like science fiction. So, our source, tell us about them.
Okay, so this person is 39 now. Their background, interestingly, is in anthropology and sociology.
Huh. Not security initially, then.
No, but they ended up working for a private security firm up in Seattle, Security Industry Specialists, or SI.
SIS, got it.
And their testimony, it details this alleged reality of hidden surveillance, covert stuff, and technology that they claim can actually manipulate people's thoughts.
Okay, so our mission here is really to unpack this testimony, right?
Exactly. We want to understand what they're claiming, the scope of these alleged activities, the tech they describe.
And what it could all mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But crucially, based only on what this one whistleblower says in their testimony,
Yeah.
we're sticking just to the source material provided.
Right. Important distinction. Okay, let's start where they started. How did someone with an anthropology background end up in private security?
Well, according to the testimony, there was family influence relatives in military intelligence.
Ah, yeah.
And also, this was post 9/11. Remember that huge boom in the defense industry? Private security was growing rapidly, too, became much more militarized.
Yeah, I remember that period. So they joined SIS in Seattle.
hmm And what's interesting is their path within the company. They didn't just stay as a basic
They
guard.
moved up.
Yeah, apparently moved into executive protection, doing
Mhm.
threat assessments, risk management, protecting important clients, their data,
To
property.
pretty high level stuff eventually.
Seemingly so. And it was supposedly during this time, climbing the ladder, that they became aware of what they call a social engineering program.
Social engineering run by SIS.
And Amazon,
Yeah.
jointly,
Yeah.
that's the claim, happening right there in Seattle, involving research and development.
Okay, and this is where it gets really dark, doesn't it? The core allegation.
It really does.
Mhm.
The whistleblower alleges that SIS wasn't just protecting clients. They were actively experimenting.
Experimenting.
On who? This is the disturbing part. On their own employees, according to the testimony,
Mm-hmm.
and also on vulnerable people, specifically the homeless population being served by DEC facilities.
DESC, that's the Downtown Emergency Services Center.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And the alleged methods involved this voice-to-skull tech we mentioned.
Right.
Something about creating a hive mind and using specific frequencies to, well, modify behavior.
Behavior modification. Wow, and they
Yeah.
claim this spread.
That's what the whistleblower says. It allegedly expanded beyond those initial groups, the employees, the homeless, to the general population in Seattle. Even wealthier people, supposedly without them having any clue.
Without their knowledge. That's chilling.
Yeah, and the whistleblower expresses real outrage about this, particularly the idea of experimenting on the company's own staff.
Yeah.
That seemed to be a major turning point for them.
I can imagine. Okay, so let's talk about the gang stalking part. How does that fit in? Where does that knowledge come from?
Well, the whistleblower says their own training at SIS surveillance, counter-surveillance, basically gave them the playbook. They understood the techniques because they'd been taught similar things for legitimate security work.
So the skills were transferable, unfortunately.
That's the implication. It raises that point about how security training could potentially be, well, misused.
Yeah. And they describe how people are chosen for this. These targeted individuals, or TIs.
hmm The testimony outlines a kind of profile, often people who were maybe isolated, don't have a big support network, but also, interestingly, often described as highly intelligent, maybe interested in, alternative research, what some might call conspiracy theories,
Right, that label gets used a lot.
or people who disagree with government policies, maybe interested in advanced tech themselves. It's a specific kind of profile they paint.
So someone potentially questioning, independent-minded, maybe a bit outside the mainstream.
That seems to be the gist of it, yeah. And the program they allegedly face is described as this multi-pronged attack.
Like what?
Organized stalking, obviously, but also trying to ruin their careers, character assassination, isolating them from friends and family.
Just systematically dismantling their life.
That's the picture painted. And then layering on top this alleged technological manipulation we've been discussing.
And there's a warning in there, too, isn't there, about seeking psychiatric help?
Yes, a very strong warning. The whistleblower claims that psychiatric diagnoses are actually used as a weapon against TIs. To discredit them, basically. To strict them of their rights and make their claims seem like delusions. It shows a real deep distrust of, well, the system, I suppose.
Definitely. Now, they also make a distinction, right, between maybe a general feeling some people have of being targeted and something more specific happening in Seattle.
Yes, that's an important clarification in the testimony. They describe this very specific, intense program allegedly run by SIS in Seattle.
And that involves more than just stalking and tech.
According to the source, yes. It allegedly includes actual abduction, being forced into these DSC shelters, which often leads to homelessness.
Yeah.
Then the experimentation we talked about, and even forced labor within SIS itself.
Forced labor. Good grief. The scale of this alleged Seattle program, did they give numbers?
They gave estimates. Around 300 to 400 people specifically abducted in Seattle for this program.
Okay.
Dozens of SIS employees experimented on. But then nationwide, the estimate for people experiencing the broader TI phenomenon, the stalking, the tech, is much larger.
How large?
Between 1 and 2 million people. That's the whistleblower's figure.
1 to 2 million. That's staggering if true. And is this supposed to be some super secret thing within SIS?
Apparently not, according to the whistleblower. They claim it's discussed pretty openly inside the company.
Really?
And also with liaisons. People from DSC, from Amazon, even military personnel who are operating in civilian roles.
Wow.
They really emphasize the prevalence of ex-military and ex-intelligence folks within private security, suggesting that maybe creates a certain culture or network.
That alleged openness, that normalization, that's almost as disturbing as the activities themselves.
It's a striking claim, definitely. It suggests the level of, well, acceptance or maybe compartmentalization within these connective circles that, yeah, it warrants thought. And the revolving door between military, intelligence, and private security is, of course, a known thing.
Okay, let's pivot to the technology itself again. Voice-to-skull, frequency manipulation. Can you break that down a bit more based on the testimony?
Sure. So the core idea described is using technology to directly influence people. Voice-to-skull is presented as literally putting voices or thoughts into someone's head.
Bypassing the ears?
That's the claim.
Yeah.
And then there's the idea of using specific frequencies to manipulate emotions and behavior,
Yeah.
not just individually, but potentially on a larger scale, too.
Larger scale? How?
They talk about field effects, the idea that frequencies could be broadcast over, say, a whole neighborhood or area,
Affecting everyone there.
potentially influencing the general mood, maybe making people agitated or passive. The whistleblower even speculates this could be used to, like, start or stop riots, or even manage traffic flow somehow in downtown Seattle.
Wow, that's a massive level of control being suggested. How do they claim it works mechanically?
The description involves broadcasting a specific radio frequency. This frequency supposedly resonates with an individual's mind, their body, maybe even their DNA.
Resonates.
Yeah, like tuning into a specific person.
Yeah.
And this resonance creates what the whistleblower calls a superhighway
A highway for what?
for sending information directly into the person. Thoughts, emotions, behaviors, basically programming them.
And the person wouldn't know it's not their own thought.
That's the most disturbing part of the claim. They allege these implanted thoughts are completely indistinguishable from your own natural thoughts. You just think it was you.
Good Lord. Is there any precedent claimed for this?
They offer one specific anecdote. Allegedly, this technology was used on President George W. Bush during a speech.
Seriously, on a president?
That's the claim made in the testimony. It implies this tech isn't new and has been used at, well, very high levels.
The implication being that Seattle is now, what, a test site?
An open proving ground is the phrase used.
Oh.
Basically, a place to refine and deploy this technology more widely, with potentially serious effects on the people living there.
And they mentioned physical effects, too.
Yes, specifically premature tooth loss in some TIs, which they attribute to radiation exposure from the technology.
Tooth loss. Okay. Any other locations mentioned?
Aurora, Colorado comes up. It's near Buckley Air Force Base, which is noted as significant. It suggests this might not be limited just to Seattle.
And the people doing the stalking on the ground, the gang stalkers, any description of them?
Yeah, the testimony gives some details, often using unmarked cars. Chevys, apparently common.
Why Chevys?
Not sure, just mentioned. Sometimes these cars might have military-style stickers, maybe to create a specific intimidating impression,
And the people themselves.
often younger, sometimes tattooed, occasionally projecting a sort of gangster vibe. Again, the suggestion is this is deliberate intimidation, psychological manipulation.
So it's designed to make the target feel threatened from multiple angles. Like, is it the government? Is it criminals? Keep him off balance.
Precisely. Create fear and confusion about who is actually behind it.
Okay, let's talk recruitment. How do they allegedly get people to do this kind of work?
The whistleblower claims they target people with, let's say, moral ambiguity.
Like,
They mention specific examples, like ex-LAPD officers who left after the Rodney King riots. Also people with existing criminal backgrounds.
And there's this hands-off policy.
Yes, that's described as key. The idea is to avoid direct physical assault whenever possible. Why? Plausible deniability.
So psychological damage is the goal, not leaving bruises.
Exactly. Inflict mental and emotional harm, isolate them, ruin their life, but without leaving easy physical evidence that traces back.
And how are the stalkers themselves kept in line or motivated?
Multiple alleged tactics, offering a sense of belonging, acceptance, promises of a better future, money, cars, education, connections,
Telling them a dream?
kind of, and also fostering this strong us versus them mentality, painting the TIs as deserving targets, as the enemy.
Dehumanizing them.
Seems like it. And here's another really disturbing claim. The gangstalkers themselves are allegedly targeted with the same technology.
The V2K and frequency stuff on them. Why?
To suppress empathy, apparently. To numb their conscience, make it easier for them to do these things without feeling guilt or remorse.
Wow. Using the tech to control the controllers.
That's the allegation.
Yeah.
And the whistleblower predicts this is all heading towards a nationwide rollout, creating this deep split in society, who's on the right side of this program and who's on the wrong side.
A future based on alignment with this hidden system. And automated software could manage it.
The testimony suggests automated software could be used for mass manipulation, making it even more widespread and efficient. A truly chilling thought.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Now, the whistleblower apparently took calls or messages from people experiencing this. What came up there?
Yeah, some specifics came out. One thing confirmed or alleged is that the pretense for targeting someone is often that they're a criminal.
Even if they're not.
Right, usually a false accusation used as justification internally. The command structure was also mentioned. Supervisors coordinated the tech side and the street theater, the actual stalking.
Any names?
A couple were mentioned in relation to SIS, Dennis P. Hatton as a watch commander, and John Speake as the CEO at the time.
And this structure is compartmentalized.
Highly compartmentalized, apparently. Standard practice in intelligence keeps information contained. People only know their part.
Makes sense. What else came up from callers?
One person noted how police stations seem to be adding mental health wings more often now.
Which ties back to...
The whistleblower's claim about psychiatric diagnoses being used against TIs. It was seen as potentially related.
Interesting observation. What about inducing diseases? Was that discussed?
Yes. The idea of using someone's DNA information combined with specific frequencies to actually cause illness.
Is that possible?
The whistleblower acknowledged it's theoretically possible, a major concern. They didn't confirm it is happening, but pointed to Amazon's investment in related health and DNA research as noteworthy.
That's terrifying potential. Did anyone contradict the hands-off policy?
One caller did. They reported experiencing direct physical harm and also medical sabotage, doctors dismissing real symptoms, that kind of thing.
So maybe the policy isn't absolute, or maybe there are variations?
Or rogue elements, yeah. It raises questions. Corporate involvement beyond just SIS was also floated as a possibility.
Targeting by other companies.
Potentially, yeah. Specific SIS personnel names like Zimmerman and Brenninger or maybe Benarini came up in allegations too.
Okay. And how are, say, women or older people targeted? It's not always about physical intimidation, presumably.
Right. The testimony mentions smear campaigns, spreading rumors, making threats. Harming pets was specifically mentioned as a tactic used against some women.
Hurting pets. That's just cruel.
It highlights the psychological warfare aspect. There was also an unverified mention of defense contractors, like Lockheed Martin, possibly employing organized stalkers too.
Wow, expanding the potential network even further. What about the broadcast antennas? How does the signal get out?
Described as highly classified systems involving radar installations, maybe cell phone towers, often camouflaged or hidden in plain sight.
So part of the existing infrastructure, perhaps?
Possibly. The technology itself, a key term used was remote neural monitoring.
Remote neural monitoring, what does that mean?
According to the testimony, It allows them to not just send thoughts in, but also read thoughts out, and potentially even see through the target's eyes.
Yeah.
Visual monitoring.
See through their eyes. That's total
It's
surveillance.
an extreme claim, yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, the whistleblower themselves, they've offered to testify legally.
That's what they stated, yes. And they claim they are now a target, too.
A victim of V2K, yes. They alleged that after deciding to blow the whistle, they were hit with a much more advanced version of the technology.
As retaliation.
That's the implication, leading to homelessness, constant targeting, the full TI experience they described, basically.
And what kind of things do they hear via V2K now?
Examples given include direct threats, attempts to make them distrust everyone around them, constant psychological manipulation. It really underscores the personal cost described.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, unpacking these really complex and deeply disturbing claims from this one audio testimony.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Widespread surveillance, technology supposedly capable of manipulating thought and emotion, organized harassment. The scale is just difficult to comprehend.
Absolutely. And again, we have to stress this deep dive, it's based entirely on the content of that single testimony.
Critically important. These are extraordinary claims. Our goal was just to lay them out clearly as presented by the source. We really encourage you, the listener, to think critically about all this. Do your own research if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely approach it with a critical mind. But considering these claims, just hypothetically, what are the implications? For privacy, for freedom of thought, for, the future of controlling society.
Big questions.
What does this testimony make you wonder about? Feel free to mull that over. Share reflections if you like, but always, always respect privacy and legal lines.
Ultimately, grappling with claims like these, however outlandish they might seem at first glance, it's important. It helps foster an informed public, asking the right questions about technology, power, and liberty.
Questions that definitely need asking.